Welcome.
Benvenuti, bienvenidos, hoş geldiniz.
Willkommen.
Today we're going to take a look at ways in which you can work with your coursebook online. So the focus of today's webinar is going to be online teaching, but a lot of the activities can also be adapted for a real-life sort of presence course, a real-life classroom, so to speak. I hope you can all hear me nice and clear. If not, please type in the chat and then I can leave the room and come back in if there's any problem. Sometimes the internet connection might be unstable. Should I be kicked out, don't worry. Fabian will be coming back in and I will do my best to come back in as soon as I can as well. The lobby that you just all waited in before we started showed you three activizer, energizer activities, three suggestions. These you will get along with a presentation for this webinar as a PDF, as a download at the very end. So don't worry, everything that I'll be showing you today and everything that you saw in the lobby will be available as a download later on. So what are we doing today? Here is my presentation, 5 ways to use your coursebook online as the focus, and we're going to take a look at different ways in which you can do that. First of all, we're going to take a look at the Digitale Unterrichtspaket, which for the sake of convenience, I'm going to call DUP henceforth. So whenever I say DUP, I'm referring to the Digitale Unterrichtspaket. Then we're going to take a look at CLED Augmented App, which I'm not going to talk about in detail from a technical point of view, but I will just show you how you can use the CLED Augmented App in an online setting. We're going to take a look at Copyables, take a break activities, a few more activizers and energizers, and we're going to take a look at revising language with the fun checks. All the activities that I will suggest are based on and stem from Let's Enjoy English A2 review, which you can see here on this slide. The coursebook series, for those of you who do not yet know it, is CLED's latest coursebook series for English and covers level A1 to A2 to level B1. And at each level, you've got various coursebooks, namely a first starter, an A11 and an A12, and an A1 review. That's the A1 level. And the same for A2. You've got A21, A22, and A2 review. And then at a B1 level, you've got B11, B12, those are the main course books, and B1 grammar. So this is the coursebook series, and my examples today will all be from A2 review. And I would like to welcome all of you again who came in a little late. Philip, hi. Hi to Bon. I'm happy that you're with us too today. And we'll start right away with a suggestion for teaching with the Digitale Unterrichtspaket, the DUP. The beauty of the DUP is that it is browser-based and cloud-based. So you can download the DUP, you can download the Klettsprachen app onto your computer, which allows you to download all the materials, all the coursebook materials that you get with the DUP. But you can, if you prefer that, work in a browser-based environment, which means whatever browser you use, Mozilla Firefox, Chrome, Safari, or Edge, you will work in the windows of your browser, and everything will be supplied to your browser, so to speak, from the cloud, from the CLED servers. So what that means is you don't have to download anything. And since it's all digital, you can work with the many pictures and the many visuals that you have in the coursebook, and you can zoom into these pictures, you can enlarge them. And like Ulrike says, yeah, freedom, exactly. It allows you a lot more flexibility. The DUP allows you to prepare stuff at home or to look at things at home, save these preparations, save whatever you do in the DUP at home on the CLED servers. And then the next time you're in the institution, you just log into your account at the Klettsprachen app, and then you have everything there in your institution via internet. But again, if your institution doesn't have a stable internet connection, or if you're worried about this, you can download these things onto your computer. So here's a suggestion from the Out and About pages. And I said Out and About pages because the Let's Enjoy English coursebook series has a new segment, or a new segment, it's a new series anyway, but it has a segment focusing on culture, on Landeskunde. And each and every Out and About page throughout the coursebook series has a text and a few exercises that are based on the text. In the main coursebooks, you even have video. Here, however, the example is from A2 Review. The review books and the starter, the first starter, and the B1 grammar, they have Out and About pages, but these do not come with a video. You can download all CLED books. When you have the CLED app and you work with a DUP, you can download any material that you work with. You don't have to do it internet-based and browser-based and cloud-based. You can download all the materials. But back to this picture. So this picture is from the Out and About page in Let's Enjoy English A2 Review, page 57. In the book, it's just a very small picture. You can hardly recognize any details in the book. But when you work digitally, you can zoom into it. When you work with a DUP, today, for the sake of security, safety in the sense of a stable internet connection, I decided to work with screenshots and not share my screen and show it live to you. But when you work with a DUP, you can zoom into the picture and you can enlarge it like this. So my question to you would be, please type in the chat, what are your associations with this picture? When you see this picture, what do you think of? Just let your mind go and type in the chat anything that you would associate with this picture. The first female pilot? Sure. The first woman pilot. Adventurous women? Adventure. Yes. Anything else? I'm just waiting for a couple of minutes because quite a few of you are still typing and writing. Flying across the Atlantic. Yeah, that is closer to what this is all about. Pride. Absolutely. Yes. Being different. Women's rights. Actually, the focus of the text and the topic of this Out and About page was already mentioned. Flying across the Atlantic, first female, first woman pilot. This picture is from a unit on Amelia Earhart. I'm going to show you the whole picture, the whole unit in a second. But here is an activity. I'm going to play the audio. Each and every text in the Out and About pages comes with an audio. I'll show you after you heard the audio how you do it in the DUP, how you activate the audio. Here I have uploaded the audio to the room that we're meeting in Adobe Connect so that there won't be any technical problems when I play it for you. So I'm going to ask you to listen to the audio. So this is what I do in my class. I give my students the picture. I ask them what they associate with the picture. So the scene is set for the text that they're about to hear. Then I'll play the text, and then I'm going to do a task based on the audio. I'll do all that with my students having their books closed. So I'm going to ask them, before I do the activity, before I play the audio, I'm going to ask them to close their books. Again, in an online setting, we don't even know if they have their books in front of them. Essentially, we would assume that we teach with a DUP. By the way, the DUP is really just for us teachers. Our students cannot even buy it. Our students would still have the print version of the book. So assuming that we work with a DUP and our students have the books, I would ask them to close their books and to not look into their books, but just to listen. Remind me what DUP means, the digitale Unterrichtspaket. All right? And I hope we all agree that DUP is much shorter than me always saying digitales Unterrichtspaket. Plus, changing the case and whatnot is quite tricky, speaking English and then having this German word in between. So here's the audio. Lean back. I'll play the audio in full because there's going to be an activity based on the audio. So lean back, listen to the audio, look at the picture, and try to remember as many details as you can.
Out and About. Units 3 and 4. 2.
Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was an American pilot, famous for her many flying records. She was born in Kansas, USA, in 1897. At the age of 23, she went in a plane for the first time, and she knew she had to learn to fly. She worked hard to pay for flying lessons and to buy a plane. When she bought her first pilot's jacket, she slept in it for 3 nights, so that it didn't look so new, and so that she looked more experienced. In 1932, she became the first woman and the second person to fly solo non-stop across the Atlantic. She set off from Newfoundland, Canada, and after a flight of 15 hours, with strong winds, ice and mechanical problems, she landed in a field in Northern Ireland. When the farmer asked, "Have you flown far?" she replied, "From America." He didn't believe her. 3 months later, she became the first woman to fly solo coast to coast across the USA. She also became the first person, man or woman, to fly solo from Hawaii to California, across the Pacific. The flight was problem-free, and she was even able to relax and listen to an opera on the radio. Then Earhart began to plan her most difficult flight. She wanted to be the first person to fly around the world at the equator, where the Earth is widest. She set off on this adventure on June the 1st, 1937. On July the 2nd, her radio lost contact over the Pacific Ocean, and she was never seen again.
All right, thank you, Fabian, for mentioning my phone. I hope you can hear me nice and clear now instead of the audio. That was the text. Quite a long text, actually, but since it's an A2 review book, our students can do quite a lot. They have covered quite a lot of material yet. So that should not be a problem, the activity that I'm suggesting now. So here is the activity. What do these numbers refer to? Type your answers in the chat. My students, of course, I would ask them and they could talk to me. Depending on the class size, I would also ask them to type their answers in the chat. Since we are quite a big group today, I would ask you to do the same. So what does this number refer to based on what you heard? She was born in 1897, correct, her birth year, so to speak. Yes, what does this number refer to? 23. Can you remember? No, she wasn't born in 23. She was 20 years old when she first flew. Exactly. And here we've got another one, 1932. What does that number refer to? First solo flight, exactly. For us here, this is fine, of course. If you just give me these pieces of information, with my students, of course, I would ask them to write and take the time to either say or write entire sentences. I think I have 2 more numbers here. Do you remember this one? 15. What does 15 refer to? Anyone? Petra's typing. And now a few more are. Hours from Canada to Ireland. That was the flight across the Atlantic, exactly. So this was the length of the first flight. And then we have the year 1937, and that was the year when she died. Yes. Now, that was the activity that I would ask my students to do before they even look into their books and read the text. So just use the picture. And again, with a DUP, you can really zoom into the picture nicely. On the page, it looks like this. So I printed out the page from the teaching material. I haven't mentioned that yet, but the teaching material is part of the DUP. So when you buy the product, you get the students' books for all the levels A1. So when you buy the DUP for Let's Enjoy English A1, you get the students' book for first steps A11, A12, and A1 review. When you buy the DUP for A2, you get the levels A21, A22, and A2 review. So 3 students' books and 3 teaching books as well. So the teacher's material is part of the DUP, and that comes as a PDF. So you can print it, you can save it onto your computer, either way. So the whole page looks like this. As I just showed you here, the screenshot from the teaching material, from the DUP actually, looks like this. And in the upper left corner, you can see a pen, a symbol. You can see a pen. That symbol allows you to show the solutions for yourself or your students. The other symbol that you see next to exercise 2, there is a little box with a triangle in there. Whenever you see that symbol, this is the audio. So when you click on that symbol, I can show you what that looks like. When you click on that symbol, the audio will come up. It's sometimes open in a separate window, or it opens on the very same page. And then you can play the audio. You don't have to show that to your students. You can just do it. You can play the audio again, and your students still look at the picture that you would have as a screenshot on a separate slide, maybe a PowerPoint slide, say. So your students can still do that. And you play the audio, and then you do this task with the numbers. Or you can choose any set of items, linguistic items. You can do an exercise on words, on phrases. Have your students ask your students what these words or phrases refer to. I know that from this screenshot it might be hard to read the text. If you work with a DUP live, you can zoom into the text and you can have a full screen of the text, and your students can read the text on the screen. That's no problem. Here with the presentation, it is a screenshot, so I can't change the size of the text, but in the DUP you can. The solution, by the way, and this is just what I marked for you as the audio, the solution comes with this pen, as I said. So this is the whole text. Before I show you the solution to the exercises on the page, take a minute to look at the text. I'll be quiet, take a minute to look at the text, and then I'll suggest another activity before you go to the ones that are in the book. All right. So before I give you the activity, Petra asked, where do I get the pictures from? As long as you just do this on your screen, and as long as you don't save anything or, God forbid, share anything, you take a screenshot of these things and you put them on a separate document, say a PowerPoint or a Word. You just put the picture in, and then you can show the picture while you are playing the audio, right? And so you have to navigate 2 different apps to do that. But again, don't save it. That's not allowed. And do not even send that to anyone. That is also not permitted under copyright law. Now, the activity is this. Your students have heard the text. They have done an activity based on listening to this text once. And now you ask them to read the text and remember what they've heard. And then you can ask them to type in the chat or tell you what the differences are between what they've heard and what they've read. So did they learn anything more in the text from what they've heard, etc.? So do they remember anything differently, say? So they get the chance to read and compare with what they've heard, what they remember. Because sometimes students think they hear something, they misunderstand, and then they have the text, so they can check their own listening against the text. Another activity on that particular skill, comparing what you understood with what you've actually got on the page, will come a little later. The pictures, they're all in the DUP. Everything is in the DUP. Don't worry about this. So these are the tasks that come with the text. The video is, the out and about videos are in the main course books. Again, just as a reminder, this is a to review. So the review books, they do not have videos. The videos are always part of the out and about pages in the main course books, A11 and A12, or A21 and A22. But they're not part of the first steps, A1 review, A2 review, and B1 grammar. There are out and about pages, but they don't have video. But if the video is part of the course book, in the main course book, you can just click on the video in the DUP. It's not part of the teaching material, it's part of the student's book. So you just click on it then. And again, these are the tasks. If we had more time, we could play through this whole thing, but I'll make it a little shorter here and just show you the solutions. Because when you click on that pen symbol that I have, marked with this red square now, then you will get the solutions. And the teacher's book has the solutions written into the book. So when you work with the actual book, with the print version, you've got the student's book in the center with the solutions written into it, and then teaching tips on the margins of the book. Chantal's asking, reading and checking with the text is a good way to be attentive. Is the good way to be attentive enough? Exactly, it raises awareness and it gives students the chance to check their own comprehension against the text before you go on and do something else. A follow-up assignment might be, since we talk about a VIP, a famous person, you can ask your learners, as a home assignment, you can ask your learners to choose a famous person, a VIP, an artist, a politician, etc., and research his or her vita in their own language or in English. That doesn't matter, but the task is they would have to write 10 things about this person on an empty PowerPoint slide to be shared, screen shared in the next lesson. Just names, numbers, or words, no sentences, just 10 things, right? You can do this in class. You can ask different students to share their screen and to show what they have written. Or if your platform allows this, then you can have them work in breakout rooms. And they can screen share in their breakout rooms and talk about the person. The idea is to guess who my VIP is. And they can do that either by forming statements to which I respond, saying, yes, that's true, no, that's not true, or that's false, or by asking questions, which makes more sense, actually. Asking yes, no questions, to which then I would just say, yes, he is, no, he or she wasn't, whatever. And here's an activity from Let's Enjoy English. This is a before you go activity. Here you've got a little notepad with a few items about a famous person. You can type in the chat. I think it's not a very challenging task to find out who this person is that is described by these 5 items on the yellow notepad. The before you go activities, they finish up every step of every unit throughout the coursebook series. So you have many of such before you go activities, and they revise, they recycle the language that was being taught in the unit. So they kind of close the unit. Exactly, it's Elvis. And this is what I meant. So your students have done their research on a famous person, on a VIP. They don't write down 5 things, they write down 10 things or 7 things, however many things you would like them to write down. And then they do the same thing. You ask them to write down these items and they ask each other questions or they make statements, the same way we could do it in the chat. So I could ask you to write a statement in the chat about Elvis. If you just take one piece of information from the yellow notepad and turn this into a statement about Elvis, could you please do that? Any statement, any sentence. You can type in the chat anything you find interesting when you look at the information there, to which I would then respond. Quite a few of you are typing, so I'm just waiting for a minute or two. Unfortunately loved his mother. I think that means unfortunately he loved his mother very much. That is something that I can't respond to because I don't know. And it doesn't say on the notepad. He liked playing the guitar. Yes, he did, very much. He was a very gifted player, guitar player. He was known as the king. That is true as well. There's just one, Elvis. I married a young, beautiful woman. Or he did, yes. And that woman's name was Priscilla, etc. Great talent, etc. So this would be the activity. And here you've got one page in the course book, and you can design a whole 90-minute lesson around this topic, around this idea of famous persons. And you even have a home study activity. So that was working with Adobe. The next activity will introduce the CLED Augmented App. The CLED Augmented App is an app that you can only use with your smartphones or a tablet. The CLED Augmented App is not for laptops. It's an app that allows you to download if you want to download, you can use the internet version as well, but it allows you to download all the audio and video materials onto a mobile device. And if your platform doesn't allow screen sharing with the sharing of audio, then you can use the CLED Augmented App to play audios to your students. And this is what I will show you in a minute. So the theme is at home and at work. This again is from Let's Enjoy English 8 to review Unit 2. Every unit, as you see here, has a nice and large welcome page. The learning goals are stated at the top. You've got a nice and large visual, a little quiz. And as you see there in the picture, there's this little pen. So at the click of a button, you've got the solution to this quiz as well. And this is just a segment from Unit 2. I've just decided to use a segment from Unit 2 that involves audio, of course, and we'll just play through this. So the next couple of minutes we'll devote to that. The exercise here reads, these office workers have office syndrome, health problems caused by their work. What is wrong with them? Now type in the chat what you think is wrong with person A, B, and C. The CLED Augmented App is free, and the CLED Sprachen App is free. So these are the apps that you need in order to load the content and work with the content. The content, the DUP itself is not free. That you might have to pay for. The app, however, is free. B says screen eyes. Yes, very likely. Back pain, headache, multitasking, horror. Yes, that sounds familiar to me too. A person has a problem with their back. When you click at that pen that you see on the left, you have the solutions at the click of a button. And this is what it looks like. Another tip about the DUP and the teaching book, if you work with a printed book. Anything that is shaded, that as you see here, is shaded in yellow, syndrome and caused by, this is vocabulary that is beyond the level of your students. So this is vocabulary that you can see when you look at the page. You immediately see which words or phrases to pre-teach or at least help your students with, because it's unlikely that they know these things. Although syndrome might be a word that is not that alien to German learners. Do you think the office syndrome is a real problem? Have you experienced it? You can type in the chat if you have. In my online class, I either ask my students to activate their microphones and talk to me. I would ask them directly. Don't forget, if you work online, it is much more difficult to just ask open questions like this. Do you think the office syndrome is a real problem? Have you experienced it? I mean, it's a yes/no question, basically, but essentially it's a talking point. So we want to interact with our students. In an online setting, it is not a very wise thing to just ask in the round, so to speak, ask everybody, have you experienced it? Because nobody will feel addressed. You need to, or it's much more likely that you will have to talk to a person directly, address a student directly. So here in the chat, we see that, or I can see that these syndromes are this century's known diseases. Yes, it is. Exactly. Yeah. So quite a few of us actually know this and have experienced firsthand. In my online class, I always try to make students speak because this is something that they need to do. And I mean, they can read at home, they can listen to stuff at home, they can even watch things at home, but they can't really talk much with their families, say. So this is what the online class is really there for. So I, try to get them talking as much as I can by asking them these things. So here's another suggestion. The next activity, I'm going to go back one slide and you see that this is 2A, 2B. So this is from one segment. The tasks build up 2A introduces pictures, introduces the theme. You brainstorm the kinds of things that are shown in the picture. You have a little bit of exchange about these ideas, and then you have a text in exercise 2C, and then an activity based on the text. This text does not actually look like this in the book. This is what you can do with a DUP. You can add little forms like squares or circles. And using these forms, as I have done here, you can whiten out or black out certain parts of a text. So again, you can ask your students, this is what I would do. I would ask my students to have their books closed and to just look at the screen and listen. So this time they can read along and listen. That's not a problem. And since I don't want to do this at the computer once more, I have used my Augmented App. So this is the file on the app. And when I start this, you should be able to hear the sound. I'm not going to play the entire text. We don't need that much time, but I'm going to play the first 2 paragraphs so you can try and listen out for the bits that I have whited, that I have blacked out, so to speak, that are missing from the text. Try to find out the bits and pieces that are missing and type them in the chat.
1. Do you know many office workers take only 2 15-minute breaks from their computer during their working day? If you don't want to ruin your eyes, you must take more breaks. You have to take more frequent breaks to give your eyes time to relax. Follow the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes, look at an object at least 20 feet away for 20 seconds. And another thing, your screen must be at arm's length from your eyes. 2. Sitting at a computer for hours is really...
So that would be the activity. I think you get the idea, and some of you even typed in the missing bits and pieces. Needless to say, this unit focuses on modal verbs. Linguistically, grammatically, that would be the focus. And the answers, the sentences are correct, exactly. There was also a question, would I skip exercise 2B in an online class, or would you ask individual students, is the question. To which I would say, well, it depends on several things. It depends on the time that I've got. It depends on the ability of my class. It depends on the willingness of students. The daily performance, so to speak. Sometimes they're very talkative. Sometimes they're more reserved. I don't know, when they had a stressful day. So I make it dependent on these factors. But as I said before, I usually try to encourage them to speak by actually asking them directly, saying, Peter, what do you think? Or Renee, can you tell us more about that? Or Lisa, how do you feel about X, Y, Z? So I ask them directly and I try to make them speak as much as I can. And here I'm going to show you the text now, the missing pieces. The first one is this: if you don't want to ruin your eyes, you must take more breaks. See, I did this. You can do this in the DUP. There's no need to copy paste anything or do screenshots. You can do this in the DUP. You take the forms and then you just delete the forms bit by bit. Your screen must be at arm's length. Then there's, you don't have to stop work for long, etc. And in paragraph 3, you must not ignore the signs of distress. So this is how you can work with the Augmented App and the DUP in combination. Or if you don't have the DUP even, you can work with the Augmented App, the print course book. If your students have the print course book, you can ask them, turn to page 23, look at exercise 2C, and listen. Of course, the only thing you cannot do then is to whiten out things. Okay, so that was working with the app. Now, talking about Copyables. I said before, do not do screenshots and send them or save them. That is illegal. That is not allowed by copyright. The copyables that you buy with a DUP, any material that is a copyable, that comes as a PDF, that you can print or save on your computer, of course you can send these things to students. You can also upload those things to learning management systems like VHS Cloud or Google Classroom or whatever system you work with, Moodle maybe. So copyables are meant to be shared with your students, that you can do. Here's a suggestion for an activity that is based on Unit 2, again, at work and at home, that's the topic. And what I did, not with this particular copyable, with the same idea, with a different book, I cut up, I'm going to go back, I cut up the flashcards here. So you have one flashcard per slide. So I cut up these flashcards and I put them on PowerPoint slides so that when students work with them in breakout rooms, as I had them to do that, when they work with them in breakout rooms, they can then click through a presentation and talk about each of these flashcards one by one. The same way we could do that here now. Again, at home and at work is the topic. So grammar-wise, language-wise, the focus is based on at home, at work, and also free time. So this one reads in pairs. Is your classroom ideal? Or is it too dark? Is it a bit old-fashioned? Is it warm enough? What changes would you make to improve it? When you think of your classroom, the real classroom that I mean, what would you say about that? You can type in the chat maybe a spontaneous comment regarding the classrooms that you normally, when there's no corona, when you normally work. Are these ideal? Yes or no? Or if they're not, what would you change? Just let's have a brief exchange about that. You can type in the chat and I will comment on a few things, depending on what you give me. One person says, yes, it's ideal. Okay. What else have we got? Quite a few of you are typing, so I assume you have a lot to say about your classrooms, which is why I'm going to wait for another minute to give you the chance to say something. My classroom is ideal, very big, always warm enough. Sounds perfect indeed. It's nicely decorated. The classroom that I normally teach in is at a primary school. So one thing that I would definitely change is the height of chairs and tables. Because as an adult, I don't sit normally when I teach, I walk around a lot, I move about a lot, but my students, my participants, they have to sit on these tiny chairs and that gives them backache. Okay, there could be a whiteboard maybe. Yeah, I mean, there are probably loads of things that we could change and would change if we were given the chance to think about it. Another thing is you enter a competition at a furniture store. The price is 5,000 euros, which you have to spend in the store, needless to say. Tell your partner how you spend the money if you win in a furniture store. So you can't say, I'm going to go buy a car. That is not possible. So again, these are flashcards that entice and engage students in conversation, right? They are based, topic-wise, they're based on what's been done in the unit. And since it's a review book, the focus is a lot wider than in a regular course book. To save some time, I'm going to skip over the next one. I have another one and move on to point 4. I promised you 5 activities today. I promised you 5 ways of using your course book online. So take a break activities are very important, especially in an online setting. I mean, you all know that in this time that we're at right now, we have to spend days and days sitting in front of the computer. So when our students join us for an online class, they might have spent a whole day just sitting at their screen, and they're taking it upon them to spend another 90 minutes or 60 minutes, however long your class is, with you at your computer. So it is nice if you can ask them, or if you give them the chance to every now and then get out of the rut and do something slightly different. The things in the lobby were a few more ideas, but every course book of the Let's Enjoy English series comes with such an activity called Take a Break in every unit. So you've got one of these activities in every unit. You can do them really whenever. Not necessarily at that time when you are at that point where they're printed in a course book. Of course, they need to be printed somewhere, but they do not really have to be done at that point. So you can decide when you do it. This one is one where you move, where you actually have to get moving. So which parts of the body rhyme with these words? When you know one word, stand up and touch the part of the body and say the word. So you can type in the chat one word and ask me. I will do it for you. I will say the word that rhymes with what you type in the chat, and then I will touch it. And I will, of course, in the process, move about quite a bit. And I will have some other ideas. Farm, okay, you've done it. Okay, this would be my arm, exactly. Farm and arm. Anything else? Okay, you do the trick. Shoulder and shoulder, exactly. Put and foot. Now I gotta move down and touch my foot. Pack and back, etc. So this is the idea. Your students, it's not just an activity where you revise vocabulary, you also get your students moving. Another way of doing a short activity where you have your students get up and get away from the computer is if you ask them to get an object from their apartment, from their house, and bring it to the computer. And then just maybe have the other students guess what kind of object that is by asking yes/no questions. Or they could present the object and tell a little bit about the object, why they have it, what they use it for, how long they've had it, etc. So one, you get them active, you get them moving, and two, you make it into an active, a talkative activity, so to speak. And you can ask them to turn their cameras and microphones off for 1 or 2 minutes in order to get an object. The object should be small, of course. Good. That was that. Another take a break activity is this. That's more of a language/cultural thing where you have a number of sentences and names, again, under the heading of VIPs, names that are mixed up. So if you look at these statements here, they are clearly wrong. Imagine a song. Imagine was sung by Puccini, which clearly is not the case. Who was the person that sang that song? And you can ask your students to say it or to type it in the chat. And as a follow-up, you can ask your students to write 5 or 6 sentences of their own. People that they love, that they admire, people that they're interested in, and mix up the people and the statements. So we can do this here. I could ask you, who was the person that sang Imagine? Who was the person that composed La Bohème? Needless to say that this activity focuses on the passive form from the way that the sentences are phrased. So when you do this activity with your students, make sure that you use the passive form. So I'm just going to wait because one of us is typing. Maybe there's an answer coming. Now more of you are typing. Okay, you're taking on the activity. John Lennon was the person, exactly, was the person who sang Imagine. So these are short take a break activity. I mean, their name is what they do. They offer the students, they offer you a short break. You can do them at the beginning of a lesson, you can do them at the end of a lesson, or just in between when you feel, oh, I just need to do something different to give my students a break, so to speak. And the last activity I promised is from Fun Checks. This is revising language, this is recycling language. Oh yeah, that's perfect. There's a whole solution there in the chat coming up. Every course book in this series, the smaller, more compact versions of Let's Enjoy English First Steps, A1 Review, A2 Review, and B1 Grammar, as well as the main course books, have such fun check pages. There are double pages with 4 exercises on each page, and every exercise focuses on one of the previous units or steps in terms of language and things that are being revised. So I've chosen 3 activities from this one that I would like to take a closer look at with you. The first one is this. Who is Michael? This is Michael. So again, you see the picture. If you wanted to, you could zoom into the picture with a dupe and you can have your students guess a little bit about, you know, what Michael is, where he lives, what he does in his free time, etc. The activities is the following. The walk around bit, when you read the task, I've marked it in green, I've underlined it now. The walk around bit is difficult, not to say impossible in an online setting. So you need to do it in a plenary, either with all the students present, or you give them the task in breakout rooms. And what you do is this. You ask them to define for themselves who Michael is. So I will do that, and you can do the same thing. you look at the table and you find one bit or one piece of information from each line with regard to Michael. So is he a businessman? Does he live alone? Does he enjoy sailing, etc.? You do that for yourself, and then the other students try to find out who your Michael is by asking you yes/no questions again. So you can do the same thing with me. You can type in the chat now, yes/no questions, try to find out who my Michael is. I'll just wait. And I'll say, yes, he is, or no, he isn't. So you can try to find out who my Michael is. Let's start with the job. Is he a doctor? Yes, he is. Good guess. What about the place or the way of living? What would be a question you could ask me there? Does he live with a partner? No, he doesn't. Does he live, are you a, I don't know, I can't read that, sailing? No. No, he doesn't live with a partner. Sailing, yeah. No. He lives with a pet. Does he live alone? No, he doesn't. He lives with a pet. Is he taking photos, etc. So my Michael looks like this. So if we had more time, I would, of course, given you the chance to also play with each other, asking, answering. So this is a way of how you can work around this, walk around the class type of activity. You can do this in the plenary when you ask different students. Now Petra goes and says, Petra, what is your Michael? Now everyone in the room ask Petra, either type in the chat or ask her questions. Say, and Petra would then say, yes, he is, no, he isn't. This activity, the paintbrush people, yeah, exactly. Or you can just write it in the chat. The paintbrush people, in an online setting, in order to make it more operable, I give these paintbrush people numbers. And then you can ask me questions about the person, the paintbrush person that I have chosen. You can ask me about the color of their hair. You can ask me about facial features. You can ask me about accessories. And I can say yes or no, etc. And you can try to find out who my person is. And I'm just waiting a few minutes because quite a few of you are typing. So maybe that is for me, maybe that's a question with regard to the paintbrush person. Does the person have a mustache? No, he doesn't. That would have been easy, right? Then you would have known right away. Funny creatures indeed. The paintbrush person that I have chosen is a 1, and that would be the alternative. You can have students describe the person, and then the others would have to say the number. Is the person wearing glasses? Yes, he is. He is wearing glasses. Can you find out mine? Do we have more questions coming? Is it number 1? Yes, it is number 1. Exactly. Because I would have said my paintbrush person has white hair. He is wearing glasses. He has a sort of neutral look, somewhat nerdy look, etc. Now, here's another activity from that page, which is a spot the difference type of activity. So what you could normally do is you could have your students look at it and then write down differences. Clearly, this is about the is there, there is, are there, aren't there, etc. These phrases and prepositions. What you could do is, after you've given them time to look at the pictures, maybe take notes, you could cover up one picture. And you can ask them, what is different in picture B? Again, with a DUP, you just add a form, the way I have done it here in the PowerPoint. You just add a form and you ask your students to type in the chat or to write down on a piece of paper and then show at once, everyone at the same time, what the differences are between A and B. That is one way of doing it. Another way would be, and that is what we can do here. Oops. I thought we deleted that from the last webinar. Since this is a rerun, I had this activity done before. I forgot to delete this. Sorry about that. Fabian, if you could, it doesn't actually matter. We don't have to delete it, Fabian. That's all right. But if you want to, you have the pen active there. On the left side of your screen, the second symbol from the top is a pen, and you can draw into the pictures. You can just circle the things. So before your students speak, if this, I mean, it's an A2 review book, but if you have a class that is very insecure about speaking, if students are not very likely to talk off the top of their heads, you can also ask them to look at the picture and just circle the things that are different. And then you can allow them a minute or two to do that, and then you can ask them, so now let's talk about it. So what is different between these pictures? And then you can take a pointer the way I do now. Where is my pointer? There it is. Sorry. You can take the technology. You can take the pointer and you can point at the thing, and then you can say, okay, so let's look at the vase. What is the difference there? And then students must say, in picture B, there is a red flower and not a blue flower, for instance. Yeah, good. That would be another alternative suggestion for this type of activity. If you do this in an online setting, you can either give students time to look at it and then hide one picture, or you can give them more time to look at it and circle the differences. The advantage that has is that students get active. They're not just passively looking at stuff and maybe writing down things on their own, but they can really participate in the sense of drawing on the picture. Now we need to come to an end. The mentioned before, every unit has a before you go activity. And so now here's the time for you to tell me something that you have never done, never ever done, but that you would really like to do. And maybe a place that you have never been to, but you would really like to visit. Oh, the sun's coming out here in Berlin. Okay. So I'll just wait for a minute and you can type in the chat the things that you would like to share with me. So every unit finishes with such an activity, and that allows you to wrap up your lesson nicely. If you haven't done it, if you haven't made it quite through to the end of the unit, it is up to you to decide whether or not you're going to use this before you go, because you could also use it as a kind of revision at the beginning of the next unit. I mean, it's called before you go, but if you don't have the time to cover it, you can also use it as a recap or revision at the beginning of the next lesson. Someone says, I've never been to Hawaii. I've never been to Australia. Hawaii is on my list too, quite high up actually. I've never learned sign language. I'd like to do this. That is true too. Whenever I see a person using sign language, I think, oh, I would love to do this too. All right, now to wrap this up and summarize, what we have done so far is we have looked at teaching with a DUP, teaching with a digitale Unterrichtspaket. We looked at how you can incorporate the Cloud Augmented App, or how you can use it if you don't have the DUP. How you can use Copyables online, how you can take a break. So a few ideas for activizers and energizers. And we've looked at how to revise language with a fun check. And now here's the last activity. Fabian, I'm afraid. Oh, it's great. Thank you. I've activated the pen for you. You can now tell me how you feel about this webinar. Think of an adjective for each emoji. This was what the students would do. They would write an adjective that matches the emoji. You can just activate the pen and just put a cross, or not initials, a cross or a form under or around that emoji that you feel matches your impression of this webinar best. All right, so I see a few crosses there, a hook there. Good. Now, this would be the last activity for this webinar. Again, before Fabian comes in, everything that I've shown you, all the slides and the things from the lobby, will be available as a download when Fabian opens the last layout of this webinar. You will find the downloads in the lower left corner, and you have a button there to download these things. All right, somebody fell asleep. Sorry about that. I hope at least it was good sleep.